Morning all, today I'm in Stirling at the Holyrood Church where there's a fantastic graveyard. What we're going to have a look around now is what's called a merchant's graveyard. Let's have a look. So this is the sign for the old kirkyard graveyard. So as it says here, the gravestones are in a row. Some of the older stones have emblems of mortality, skull or an hourglass. Many also have the trade symbols of bakers, masons, weavers or other crafts. So let's have a look around this graveyard and see what trades we can find. Okay, so let's see what different trades, jobs we can find on some of these gravestones. So John Murray simply says merchant. This one looks interesting. So I think the date might be 1804. There's no name or anything on there, but looks like a sheaf of wheat. Some shovels, maybe a, could be many things. A farmer, a thatcher, wheat, baker. Could be a few things, but that's quite an interesting gravestone. What's this one? Robert Yellowlees, Provost of Stirling. So Provost, I think that's a head of a local council. So John Murdoch, a merchant of Stirling. So some of these are quite non-specific. If I get a chance, I'll have a Google later and I'll do a little pop-up showing what they were a merchant of, if I can find the information, that is. Edward Buchan, Parlin McFarlane, grain merchant. Okay. David McCree, mason. Okay, that's an interesting one. So there's a few of these gravestones here, monuments. They've got the urn with the cloak over it. That symbolises a passing from life to death, from earth to heaven, light to dark. So, what's this one? Randolph. So, Charles Randolph, engineer and shipbuilder. Okay. What have we got down here? So, Reverend John Hugh. Probably pronouncing some of these names are very wrong. Here lies Robert Smith. Not Robert Smith of the Cure, Robert Smith the manufacturer. Here's an obelisk. So this is Robert Prentice. Once again, merchant. So this one is quite an interesting one for me, seeing as I used to be a stonemason. So not much detail here on the back. Robert Taylor by the looks of it. But if we go to the front, it's a little bit worn, but if you look carefully, you can see the carvings of stonemason's tools. That's the mallet in the centre, and then you have a chisel in the centre. There's another hammer there. There's the triangle. So yeah, that's quite cool. That's interesting. So Robert Taylor, stonemason. So I didn't know if I'd find this particular grave. I was hoping I would. So this grave, if we look down here, it's got a very interesting carving on there. It's a carving of somebody taking a corpse out of the ground. So the reason for this is in the early 19th century, there was a lot of grave robbing, body snatching happening. And this was carved on here, maybe as a deterrent. So the science of learning about the body was getting looked into more and more in the early 19th century. And I guess the doctors, scientists would pay a fair bit of money for a corpse. From reading about it, I think they'd pay about 10 shillings, which was a couple of months' wages for one corpse. So there was quite a lot of money to be earned from it. And there was actually no law from stealing bodies. There was a law about looting the bodies, but not about stealing the bodies. But yeah, so this carving on here, that really is quite interesting. You can see down there he's got a shovel in his hand. So it's just got the letters J, L and HS. Not sure who they belong to. And on the back, so that marking there, pretty sure I read that's a merchant's mark. So although it's a bit non-specific, this grave belongs to somebody who was a merchant. But yeah, what an interesting grave, or gravestone. So Michael Archbold, wood merchant. Okay. Once again with the urn and the cloak shrouding it. So this one says, I think it's a bit faded, Robert Muir Gilchrist, HM Assistant Surgeon. So Her Majesty's Assistant Surgeon? His Majesty? Don't know. Once again, if I find some information, I'll put a little pop-up on the screen. So some interesting ones along here. So this one, we have George Galbraith. Up there. Duty Inspector General of Hospitals. This one was erected by William Miller in affectionate remembrance of his father, James Miller, who was a baker. John G. Aitken, ship owner in Stirling. So this one William Campbell, wood merchant. This one next to it, Thomas Turnbull, builder and quartermaster. There's some nice interesting ones along here. Look at that, I've not seen a skeleton laying down on a gravestone before. I've seen death heads and skulls, but not actually a skeleton, so that's quite interesting. And then there's a few hourglasses along here. So you've got hourglass and you've got the skull at the bottom, skull and crossbones. Nothing to do with pirates. It's just to remind you about the mortality of life. And the hourglass, very much the same. I've got to say, this graveyard in Stirling at the Holyrood Church, I think it's one of the best I've visited. So many graves to look at, but so many interesting ones as well, and the information that's written on them. Yeah, I do recommend, if you're ever up this way, and this is your kind of thing, because I know it's not for everyone, but I do recommend coming and having a look around here. Here's a quick compilation of some more gravestones showing the occupations of the deceased. So this tomb, this memorial, is really quite impressive. It's got so much detail on it. Let's have a closer look. So you've got a cherub resting its foot on a skull. Behind it you've got skulls resting on top of hourglasses. Up here you've got the hourglass. Another skull up the top. Just underneath the ivy, or whatever that is, don't know if you can see it, there's like a little trumpet, a bugle. The skull resting on a hourglass. There's a winged death head. So yeah, so much detail.